business tips to successfully start and run your business so your business doesn't run you. And more importantly, we provide personal development tools to create a better version of yourself to provide the solid foundation for your life and business to stand upon. This is the Biz Reveal, and I'm your host, Craig Sawyer. This week's episode is sponsored by Sawyer Health Solutions. Protecting what's important to you is what's important to us. Get your free health insurance quote at SawyerHealthSolutions.com. On a mission to change the way we view and treat mental health, Roseann Capanna-Hodge brings humor and compassion to serious topics in a way that brings hope and inspires action. Roseann has been featured on over 300 broadcast media outlets, including the Mel Robbins Show, Fox News, CBS, WebMD, and others, as well as authoring her latest book, It's Gonna Be Okay, about teaching parents how to reduce and reverse mental health symptoms using proven, safe, and effective natural therapies. After the show, learn more at www.drroseann.com. This is the Biz Reveal podcast with this week's guest, Roseann Capanna-Hodge. So we are talking about how mental health plays a part in the celeb life, right? Because, they have a lot of different stresses that we don't have as normal everyday people, but they do have those in addition to some of the, all the eyeballs that are on them all the time. And I had brought up, some of the celebrities that they don't like being in the public eye. They became celebrities not because they wanted to, but they had a talent or something that everybody just fell in love with. And my example of that was Kurt Cobain of Nirvana. He didn't want the fame. He just loved playing guitar and singing. And then everybody else loved it too, right? So the the fame and everything kind of came with it, and he couldn't handle it, which led down the spiral that we all know now. And so we are talking on that show about mental health, and I'm going to be posting the some of the suicide hotline numbers and things on that particular episode as we can on this one as well. Sure. So it's just kind of cool that we have you on the same day that we had that discussion this morning. Awesome. So my first question is going to be probably the most obvious one, is why is mental health more important now than it ever has been?
Yeah, this is an obvious question, but it really just needs so much attention because everyone is suffering. And the pandemic has either brought mental health issues or exacerbated mental health issues at a level we've never seen before. We're getting survey research, not that we need it, Craig, but we're getting survey research out of the States, Europe, and Asia showing that mental health is really in the can, and anxiety, depression, stress is in an all-time high. The really interesting research study came out, and startling results really, showing that teens to young adults in that age range, 50% of kids in that age, I call young adults kids, who have a family member who had COVID have a 50% chance of moderate to severe depression. And just unsurmountable wallops this year of just pressure, a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration. People have had income loss, changes. This is strained marriages. This is strained relationships with kids. And if people aren't making the regular investment to take care of themselves and protect their nervous system and tamp down that stress, they're really feeling anxious, overwhelmed, have depression, OCD in a way that we've never seen it. You can't even get in some places to a therapist.
Yeah. And that's something it's amplified multiple times over this year. What do you think is, and I don't know if this is something you can, just give me your opinion on, or something that you can actually factually back up, but what is the biggest factors of that? Because I know there's been a lot of things, like you said, there's been loss of jobs and things like that. We've also found ourselves being at home a lot more in some cases, and sometimes just being around the kids for a full day, God bless our teachers, but for a full day can also do that. Yeah. So is there any one or two things that you can point out that has
Yeah.
caused
Well,
more
I can
stress than
have a
others?
whole lot of things. I mean, when it comes to kids' mental health, I just wrote a book called It's Gonna Be Okay and has 40 pages of research citations. Aside from being fun and entertaining, I'm actually ridiculously a research nerd. And I want people to understand that there are things they can do about mental health, and they're mostly natural. And there's just a ton of science backing these things. So when we look at the sources of mental health, I mean, right now in this pandemic, as I mentioned, we only really have survey research. And one great research study that comes out every year based on survey is the American Psychological Association Stress in America survey. And they found that 70% of parents were having increased significant anxiety due to homeschooling during the pandemic and working from home. No surprise. So why is that? I mean, I think it's multifactorial, of course. I mean, people thought it was temporary, right? Who the heck is equipped to teach their own kids, Craig?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And especially for long periods of time. We're not talking like a week or two, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They're not trained, right? And the kind of education we're getting across America is disjointed, and I call it the Wild West. So you might have one district where they're only doing Google Meets for 30 minutes to half an hour, 30 minutes to an hour a day. Then you have another one's doing Zoom all day. I mean, it really just is so variable. And, kids don't know, they don't know what to do. They don't have access to teachers in the same way. They are learning. So we're supposed to be providing instruction for them, and parents are ill-equipped. They don't know. And guess what? I mean, at least 50% of the parents are also working at the same time. Right. I mean, so it's really just sort of this patchwork, and that is really stressful aside from some of those other things. And I think some of this too, Craig, is parents are deeply, affected, and they're struggling. It's not just the pandemic. This year has been so many things, major things, racism, elections. I mean, just one thing after another. Fear of getting sick in and of itself is a constant worry that weighs on people's subconscious. And if parents aren't taking care of themselves, well, they're not able to show up as great parents, as great partners, as great employees. And, our kids will do something called co-regulate with us. So how we are managing stress, how we are really almost just in our bodies, is how our kids pick up. They do pick up, and they regulate back with us. Now, it's not 100%. It's not perfect. Like, I can have the best day ever and I have a kid that's cranky. Okay. But we all know when we show up as our best selves because we take care of ourselves and we put our own oxygen mask on, our kids are better for it. I mean, it's just the way it works. Right. And I think people aren't prioritizing. I think they're learning they need to reprioritize. I think that's one of the silver linings of the pandemic, is that people are saying, wow, I need to take better care of myself. I was working too many hours and I wasn't enjoying my life. And
that's kind of where I wanted to touch upon too. Yeah. And you had actually stumbled on this earlier, and I want to go back to it. So just like most things that we have, like, we want to take care of them early to prevent bigger problems later, right? We do this with most things in life. That's why you do maintenance on your car. That's why you do your annual physical and get, all those things done, is because if there is a small problem, you can catch it early and fix it. But we are really horrendous when it comes to mental health, right? We do the physical health. We go get our knees smacked and check the reflexes and everything like that every year. But who gets their mind checked? And the mind controls everything else. So what can we do in earlier stages to start getting some, I guess, good habits in place to prevent bigger problems later?
I love this question, and this is the basis of my work, because we're not having this conversation. We're talking about what happens when you're at a crisis level, right? And people always think putting a pill is going to fix it.
Right.
Yeah, putting Band-Aids. But even a pill doesn't fix things. We have to change behaviors. We have to change our lifestyles. And nobody is immune from mental health issues. And it can happen to anybody, and it doesn't matter what kind of house you live in, what street you're living on, and what kind of car you're in the driveway. If you don't have mental health, nothing tastes the same. Nothing. You're just not going to feel the same. And you can talk to anybody at those higher levels, and they will tell you that despite having success, whether it's financial success or, celebrity or whatever it is that we deem as successful, that it didn't really matter until they got their stuff together, right? So let's talk about what are things that you can do. So I talk about the 8 pillars of mental health. And, with kids, one of the 8 is parenting, okay? And we should swap that out with adults for really mindset work and believing. But everybody needs to, first of all, believe that they can be happy, they can be well, and they can feel good about themselves. The moment you stop believing that, your subconscious is going to hear that, right? And that may be hokey, but this is just based on mindset work, right? We know exactly, your brain will believe what it tells it. A batter doesn't go up to bat and say, wow, I'm going to really stink here. Right. They say, I'm going to knock this out of the park, okay? And that's just way more likely to happen. Of course, right? So that is just so important. I can't even overemphasize how important it is to believe and have hope. But one of the first things you need to do is you need to actually develop a ritual of things that are regulating the nervous system. So our autonomic nervous system manages our stress response. A healthy stress response, you're in a more what's called a parasympathetic state. And when you're super stressed, you're in a sympathetic dominant state. And anything can trigger a sympathetic state. You lost a client, or your kid, just yelled at you, or any of those kind of things. And a healthy response will be that it will go up into the sympathetic dominant and then go down into this parasympathetic normal resting state. So what can you do? You need to get your nervous system regulated and be more in the sympathetic dominant state so that it can handle stress. That is so critical. I can't even tell you. You become stress inoculated when your nervous system is working right. You're changing your brake pads. You're not just going on your brake pads and they're like nothing left. Okay. Yes. This is about that. Right? I do a lot of car analogies. I love cars.
Car analogies. Cars and food. You could do that all day long. I'll get
it. Awesome. So how do you do that? The first thing you have to do, we have to stop pretending that our mind and body are not connected. Okay. So we talk about mind, body, spirit, but nobody ever really wants to make the connection between them. And there's importance in all that, but starts with breath work. And there is a type of breath that is really known to regulate the nervous system so that you just don't experience those stressors in the same way. And it's diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. And there's lots of different types of diaphragmatic breaths. I like a 4-7-8. You go in for 4, you hold for 7, and you exhale for 8. It's really important to have a long exhalation because it gets your nervous system down into this parasympathetic state. Now, you've got to practice this. You've got to do this 3 rounds minimum 3 times a day. When you do that, your nervous system, again, it starts going into what I call that chilled out hot tub state in the parasympathetic dominant. And you're just not going to experience that agitation in the same way. So that's really critical. Other ways to regulate that nervous system are through things like prayer, meditation, biofeedback, and just different things that are healthy ways. And that's super, super important. And you need to commit to it. And you need to do these things 10 minutes a day is the sweet spot. We know that if you do less than that, it's not going to be as effective. More is better, but all you need is 10 minutes. So I don't want to hear that you got 4 kids or you're working 2 jobs. Go out in the car, go hide in the bathroom, whatever you got to do, and get your 10 minutes, right?
Does it matter when? Like, do you have to catch it at a time that you're stressed, or you can do it first thing in the morning, last thing at night?
Absolutely. In the perfect world, you would start your day doing breath work, right? And setting positive intentions, right? Saying some gratitude sayings out loud to yourself, whatever it is.
Affirmations.
Absolutely. And, really successful people, what they do is they visualize. And they don't just visualize, they really get the sensory experience. They see it, they smell it, they taste it. So, setting that positive intention, saying it out loud and really visualizing it. And if you're stressed, it's like, wow, I see myself relaxed. I'm on the beach. I feel the heat on me, my feet are in the sand, all those great things, and really, really using your mind to help you get your breath regulated. And that is one of the best things you can do to yourself to start out your day. And certainly ending your day with doing things to relax yourself, to prepare yourself for sleep. You don't want to work until the last minute on your device and then think you're going to have a great night of sleep.
Okay. You just said it. And I wanted to ask this question because I've done this before and I kind of know the answer, but I like the explanations that different people give. When you mentioned the device, I think that that's probably, you would know more than me, but easily 90% of us are on that thing way too much, right? Because it's the center of everything. It's where you get your emails. It's where you text. It's where you call. Everything is centered around that phone. And I, like many others, have a bad habit of part of my winding down routine at night, where most people will sit in bed and they read a book. I get caught up in all my little Facebook chat or, the news of the day. And even worse, my routine in the morning, the first thing I do, I don't feel like getting right out of bed, right? It takes me a minute to get my feet on the floor. I'll get on Facebook. And of course, what do you see on there? I mean, there's a lot of negativity on there, especially last year. My God, right? Yeah. So that's one of the worst things you could do is start your day out with all this negative stuff because it starts your day negative and it kind of continues on from there. So please talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, if you know internally that something doesn't feel right, don't ignore your internal radar because that's just a recipe for trouble. Okay. So if something doesn't feel right and that's how you're setting up your day, Craig, that's a problem, right? Save it till later and, replace it, right? Replace it with something that's healthy. Before you go to bed, put your phone in your bathroom next to your room so that you can't reach over when you wake up at 2 a.m., right? And who doesn't do this? So I don't want people to feel bad. It's about changing your routine, right? So maybe what you're doing is you're putting in the bathroom and you're turning on a meditation app that does a progressive relaxation. So it's walking you through breath work. Typically they do tensing and relaxing of muscles. It is really dramatic in how much it can help your mindset in your sleep. So find a different routine. Doesn't mean you can't, all scrolling, all interaction with devices is not bad. It's about that it takes us away from other things that we should be doing. And also it puts if you're going to do it at night, you're going to put your blue blocker glasses on, Craig. So these do work. The blue light will either overstimulate you or understimulate you after 20 minutes of use. So you really, really need to turn your filters on your phone and then buy these glasses. I got these glasses for $15 on Amazon and, they're really, really very, very helpful. When people consistently use them, they find that, right? But you want to have wind down activities, take an hour before you go to bed. Take some magnesium. My favorites are glycinate. There's different types of magnesium. L-threonate helps to calm down the thinking brain. Glycinate's a great one too.
Stop there for just a second. Yeah. Because again, it's another point of mine. I have always been this way. Right? I'm almost 46 years old. So we're talking as long as I can remember. When I go to bed, it takes me, and I'm talking from the time I lay my head down on the pillow to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes is pretty normal for me to wind down and get the brain stop working. Now, that being said, sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes that's my time to sort through the issues that I got to deal with tomorrow because I'm trying to work out a problem or something like that. So I want to, but there's a lot of times I don't want to. I just want to go to sleep and I'll lay there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes. I can't turn it off.
Okay.
What are some methods that people like me who have that problem that really do want to turn it off and get a good night's sleep? What do we do? What are some things that we can do about that?
First of all, most of us listening are business people and entrepreneurs, right? So I'm a second generation entrepreneur. I have 7 companies and I'm going to get a couple more this year. Yeah. So that's just what I was, did that. I wrote 4 books in the pandemic in 4 months. So,
she had a lot to say, people.
I could get up in the middle of the night and work for 2 or 3 hours, boom. My brain does not want to power down. Okay. And I've done a lot of things to optimize my brain. I've done a boatload of neurofeedback. I can process really, really fast. That's why I can write these books and do things. You have to develop a routine, and it's called sleep hygiene. So what you want to do is you have now indoctrinated yourself. You've adapted this routine that this is my time to work out my problems. But what I heard is, you know what? I kind of hate it and I want to go to sleep.
I wish I could turn it on and off. Like I'd like to be able to turn it on when I need to, but then just flip that switch and be done with it when I'm ready to.
So it doesn't work that way. So first of all, it's going to be all day. So you, more than anybody, you need to do the belly breathing diet, 4, 7, 8 breaths. Start doing 3 rounds, 3 times a day, morning, midday, put it on a timer. You've got to give your nervous system a chance. Now, I know us fast thinkers are like, what do you mean I'm going to calm down? And that means I'm going to take my edge. No, I'm going to tell you that I do in a day what most people do take 3 or 4 weeks to get done. So the more you regulate your nervous system, the more you can hack in to the higher level functions of your brain. I mean, it's pretty incredible when you use some biohacking techniques. That's a whole other conversation. We'll come back and talk about that. But you need to regulate your nervous system. So I have a sleep routine. So I make a choice every night through an a la carte menu. What am I doing to regulate my nervous system? Sometimes it's a magnesium bath. Sometimes, like when the weather's okay, it's a hot tub. Sometimes it's a sauna. Sometimes it's yoga. A lot of times it's reading, where I have a young kid where we read together and we have giggles and things like that. But if I am on my device, which happens, including my laptop, I'm putting my glasses on. So it's really making sure. Now, I use supplements to help me sleep. So magnesium, I use both glycinate and L-threonate. L-threonate is like a miracle, Craig. You need to get it. So it is the only magnesium that crosses the blood-brain barrier. And we are such an overdrive. Anybody who's experiencing stress of any kind, whether it's stress to the pandemic, everyday stress, or you have clinical level mental health issues, we are burning through magnesium. It is a cofactor in 300 processes in the body. You basically cannot get enough magnesium. There's one negative side effect, which is loose stools. So you just back off if you do that. L-threonate is the least likely for that to happen. And it really helps to prepare you. Then you can also get other kinds of supplements like adrenal support and things like that. So it's looking at how are you structuring your day throughout the day to regulate your nervous system. And then what is your sleep routine, right? And, try to avoid things like carbs at night. So eating a fat and a protein, if you have to eat at night, that will help you prepare for sleep.
Give an example of what that might be.
So, having some nuts, having some chicken and avocado, but you definitely don't want to have a sandwich before you go to bed, or some pizza or cereal. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. Carbs are going to stimulate you, and they're very likely to wake you up in the middle of the night because your blood sugar is going to raise and lower. So that can be a reflection. But busy minds, it doesn't have to be anxiety. Busy minds will get into a pattern of having difficulty going to sleep. Now, I have no problem getting to sleep, but my busy mind will wake me up in the middle of the night and be like, this is the best idea ever.
Well, like most men in their mid to late 40s, I always have that one time of the night I got to get up and go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
And I try, I have to really put an effort towards to not think. I need to try to stay as brain dead as possible to get in there.
Don't look at anything.
Right. Because if I start thinking about one thing, damn it,
Bam.
I'm there.
Bam.
And I can't get back to sleep.
Oh, do you know how many times I've written an article for a major publication in the middle of the night, or I left myself notes? Yep. I've got the best ideas,
Sawyer Health Solutions. When it comes to health coverage for you and your family, one size does not fit all. Customize your health plan to fit your family's specific needs and budget so that you only pay for the benefits you need. Go to SawyerHealthSolutions.com for a free customized quote today, or call 239-677-9877. Sawyer Health Solutions, affordable solutions for your health insurance needs.
And people, my friends and my team will email me back and they're like, it's 312.
It's like, why is she sending me? I have a dry erase board that I use for doing things like that. And I literally have done that, ran all the way across the other side of the house here to where my office is at. And I'll write something because I don't want to forget it. Because sometimes you come up with that epiphany, right? And then in the morning, you're like,
right in the middle of the
what
night,
was that?
And your brain is consolidating at night. They used to say like sleep on your book and you'll learn it. There is a truth to that. Because you go into a delta state and that's where your memory consolidates. So things, you're going to get some really interesting thoughts. So you're right. It was like when I would nurse my baby in the middle of the night. Both of my boys, if I caught their eye, they were like, it's party time. I'm awake. If I didn't look at them, right? Because I'm always smiling and then they would smile back at me. And so it was like, just keep the stimulation low. Go back to bed and avoid if you have to go to the bathroom, avoid beverages after a certain time at night. And that is very much a truth.
Especially caffeine, right?
Oh, caffeine, forget about it. You should, if you have any problem sleeping, you should have zero caffeine.
Now, here's the thing though, because that sort of common sense, right? Don't get caffeine. Yeah. Caffeine's a stimulant.
Yeah.
Chocolate has caffeine.
That's right.
But a cup of hot cocoa has tended to relax me. Now, I don't know if it's the heat because, people say hot milk. I'm not drinking hot milk. That's just gross to me. But hot cocoa that's pretty good. So that does wind me. It feels like it does anyway. And I know that there is something to like maybe taking a hot bath and then the cooling down part afterwards is kind of what makes you sleepy and relax. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. The hot bath is going to get you into that parasympathetic state. And that's why I say throw some magnesium salts in there. And you can buy them on Amazon and you just look up magnesium salts. They are very powerful. You have to be careful. They're so powerful that they physically relax you so much. Sometimes people literally will fall coming out of the bath.
Oh, that just sounds wonderful though, doesn't it? God,
sometimes I have to race to the bed. I'm like, here we go. I'm out. Right. So it is wonderful. And, it becomes part of your routine. And then you say, well, how can I do, during, my last book launch, I literally had to take a bath every night. I was too excited and too stimulated. Yeah. So you have to know what you need and take care of it. And you maybe need to shift some other things out. Maybe you need to, don't do cardio at night. So you can do weightlifting, you can do yoga, you can do those kind of stretching, but don't do cardio after 5 o'clock. It's going to interfere with getting you down to sleep. But, following good sleep hygiene will better, but you are a stimulated brain. Yeah, that's part
fine.
Of what
it's part of what I like about me. That I don't want to turn it off. And like you kind of touched on it before, is I don't want to lose that edge. But yes. I do want rest. I need to rest. Let's go backwards just a little bit here. We've talked about stress. We talked about anxiety. We talked about depression. Yep. What does what? How do I know what it is that I've got? How do I know if it's depression or anxiety or stress? Especially the differences between stress and anxiety, I think are pretty similar. But can you go through those three things and tell us what each one does?
Absolutely. And I want to just start off saying that anxiety and depression can look very similar. And we're going to go over what the difference is between clinical conditions and stress. So we all face stress. And in a good stress and bad stress, your body actually knows no difference between the two and will treat it the same. And long-term stress of any kind, right? My multiple book launches, all these things, they wear on your nervous system, right? So I have to actually kick in extra gear here, Craig, my husband's Chris, and I have to make sure that I'm protecting myself. So what is stress? So normal response, right? Like you're driving your car and a truck almost runs you over, in the car, you're like, oh my goodness. And you feel your heart rate and you're sweating and you're mad.
That's not exactly what I would say, but we'll go with your version.
Who was like, I said some swear and I was with my youngest, his name is John Carlo, and we were cracking up because my car said, I don't understand what you said, Roseann.
Hey, you got to love the technology, man. But see, that
Oh
could
my
make
God.
the stressful moments just got lighthearted all of a sudden.
I
So
know.
I guess it's a
We
good
try
thing.
to laugh a lot. We have stressful moments, but so your nervous system, whatever is going on with you, you might be PO'd, you might have all these feelings, you might be freaking out, you might have to pull over. But in a healthy nervous system, it goes back to that parasympathetic state. You are able to recover. If you are already living in a stressed state, it's going to either not recover or it's going to go offline, which means you're going to go to fight, flight, or freeze. And a lot of different behaviors can result. Now, chronic long-term stress will always 100% of the time lead to a physical or mental health problem. You are not immune from stress. And we have to stop pretending in this culture that we are. And I think that's why so many people are having a hard time in the pandemic, is they were living such high stress lifestyles. So how do you know when something's a clinical issue? Well, when it interferes with something in your life significantly, your schoolwork, your job, your relationships of some way. And people can be high performing, meaning they can have a fantastic career, and that at home be, having difficulty getting out of bed, nasty, like not cleaning, whatever is going on. And it's really causing significant problems. That is the definition of a mental health problem. Anxiety and depression have a lot of features that overlap, which is very, very, very surprising to people. And you can be an internalizer or an externalizer in both. And internalizers are going to have internal worry, a lot of looping thoughts. They might be agitated in the inside. They may feel uncomfortable. They may have racing heart, somatic complaints. We don't see it. The externalizer is angry. They're going to vocalize. They're going to let you know. And then there's everywhere in between, right? Where you can have a mishmash. And both anxiety and depression, you can have a difficulty with, fatigue, connecting with others, sleep. Nobody escapes those mental health issues without a physical output of that, right? Headaches, stomach aches, vomiting, a lot of gastrointestinal. And, that's what the overlap. And most people have depression, even though good marketing by pharma is that it's 100% biological. I'm going to tell you most of the time it's chronic long-term stress and anxiety that leads to depression. You cannot live in this anxious world at such a high level. You cannot. You will deplete yourself physically, which results in a physical and mental depression.
So I want to go into that a little bit more. So I've been on an antidepressant for, I don't know, 14 years, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And now I come from a history of working in retail and restaurant management. And anybody who's listening, who's ever been in retail restaurant management.
I've worked in retail. I think everybody should
right?
work in retail to learn how to deal with awful people. But
yes, you get it. So, but when I stopped doing that and I became self-employed, and doing what I do now, my stress levels, I mean, it probably cut down by 80, 90%. So I don't feel nearly the amount. Now, we all have stress. Like you said, there's always some type of stress, family stress. You're dealing with, a loved one that passed away or, financial things. We always have it's called life. But the day-to-day stress it's really gotten better. So I have tried going off that medication. I'm like, you know what? I've resolved all my stressful issues because, and let me give you a little bit of history about why I'm on it. When something bad happens or somebody just pisses me off, I can't just be mad for 15 minutes and let it go.
You can't recover.
I'm mad for 2 weeks. And I mean, I'm not talking about like
Are you
holding.
Italian, Craig?
I am. Just kidding. Surprisingly enough, I'm not. I've had people ask me if I'm Latino as well. I'm like, no. Maybe it's the German in me.
Italian. I ask these things. We can be grudge holders.
Absolutely. And then that's the thing. I don't really hold grudges. I just can't get past being mad. You can't
physically let it go. It comes into almost an intrusive thought.
So even without that stress that I used to have, I still, when I've gone off the medication after a couple of weeks and it gets out of the system and everything, that part starts coming back. And I'm just, for lack of a better word, I'm just an asshole. And so I'm like, maybe I should take the pills, right? So,
I'm sure the people appreciate in your life that you're not. You know what I mean?
Especially my wife. You can ask her. So when do you know when you need the pharmaceuticals that most of us hate.
Yeah.
When do you know when you need that, or if you just need to just figure something else out in your life?
Well, first of all, thank you for being so candid, because
that's the only way to get anywhere.
Conversations totally help other people.
Yeah.
So I am not a prescriber, but I am trained to understand all the components of pharmacology, and I do a lot of work with genetic mutations and all the genetic components and all the underpinnings, right? I'm very integrative, and I believe in an integrative approach, which means you take the best of these evidence-based approaches in both ways.
Exactly.
So number one in 6 people in the United States before the pandemic is on a psychiatric med. This is a problem because we have mental health is in the toilet in America. Mm-hmm. So it's not working, right? And we can talk about what's going on with you, but here's my question. Have you really dug into finding a different way to change how you respond to that anger? Have you done that work that helps you to mitigate it, cut it off, to create a different response?
I've done enough work to understand what I need to do.
Yeah,
but I haven't.
You can't employ it.
And I don't want to use the word can't, because I do that a lot.
Yeah. You find it challenging.
I'm going to put it the way that I would normally put it. I'm not going to even try to hide anything here.
Yeah.
It just feels like I know when I'm being a jerk. I can't help. I can't stop the words from coming out of my mouth. And I know it at the time. And, this has caused relationship issues in the family and things like that. And again, I want to be candid. This is my personal story, but this is how you help people. But it has caused problems in my marriage in the past and with my relationship with the kids, because everybody knows that, Craig, when you don't want to make them mad, you don't want to make them mad because you're never going to hear the end of it. And I know when I'm being that jerk, when I'm saying the words, it just feels so good to blurt them out. I can't hold them back.
And there's so many reasons why, and we don't have to go into every personal. My guess is that you probably had a jerk as a role model somewhere along the way in your life. There's somebody who was rough.
I would say no. I had a great childhood. Now, I did have a stern childhood, as most of us did when, growing up, 40 years ago.
It's really for you. It's about
it's me. And I don't know if it's, the bullied, I was small when I was a kid and I have to prove something, Napoleon syndrome, whatever those things are. I don't know. Or if I just have a bad temper.
And this is so great because everyone has such a unique biology. You can't say that's what it is. So This is what I say to people. Sometimes people come to me and they're like, I'm on meds. They're helping me, but I don't want to be on them.
Exactly.
Okay. So when you don't want to be on them, it's like, let's explore alternatives, right? And on top of it is, what have you done? So as you're regulated, this is really for the time for you to do deeper work and to say, I've got to identify my irritants and triggers. And when I'm calmer, I got to put my big boy pants on and I've got to employ these tools, right? Because you got to regulate the nervous system and you have to learn new things that you actually have to do. I mean, I have a magic wand on my desk for a reason, because people think there's magic in the world and that you take a pill or you come in with me and you do neurofeedback and it means you don't have to do anything else. That's not the way the subconscious works. We have to break the cycle. So let's talk about alternatives to medication, because that's what my book, It's Going to Be Okay, is all about, is alternatives to medication that are evidence-based. So number one, it's looking at taking a functional approach, looking at any potential genetic mutations, any nutrient deficiencies. Most people have them, and working with a functional doctor who can use supplements, because there are supplements that are as effective or better than pretty much every psychiatric medication with 0 side effects. So that's a shocker for people, and they need to know there's some amazing things. And guess what? They don't take a whack-a-mole approach and try this medication, that medication, this supplement, that. They actually do testing. You can do saliva testing to look at your neurotransmitters, and you can alter your neurotransmitters with supplements and have a baseline. I mean, it's amazing. Psychiatrists know about it and choose not to use it. That's a whole other story. So that's one thing. Then we talked about protecting the nervous system, and we talked about sort of general stress. Well, if you have a clinical issue, you're going to up your game. You're going to be spending 20, 30 minutes a day, maybe more. And you're going to do that. I mean, I've seen people who have bipolar disorder, OCD, never do medication and be totally living an amazing life, but they dedicate and adopt lifestyle changes like nutrition, so we can regulate our nervous system with things like breathwork, meditation, foods, an anti-inflammatory diet, as well as there's some other clinical therapies, things I do, including neurofeedback and biofeedback, and they can regulate the nervous system well beyond in a completely lasting manner that medications can't do, because when you stop your medications, they stop working, right? They're not creating lasting change. There's actually therapies out there like neurofeedback that when we look as far as 10 years out is still working, still regulating the nervous system. So there's a lot out there in the world. It's what do people want to do? How much do they want to invest in their health? I mean, if you did a little Google MDing, Craig, and you saw what happens to the brain after 20 or 30 years on these meds, you're going to have early dementia. Now, you might not care because you're not going to remember, but the people around you are going to care. It shrinks the frontal lobes. So we're not designed to be on these medications forever. Now, you are very lucky. It really helps you. That is not the people that I see. I say this all the time. They're not doing well on these medications. They're going from medication to medication after medication. So what are your options? You can work with a functional physician, a naturopath, a chiropractor, somebody who can look at what potentially could be supplements to help titrate you down. And you do that with a physician, or add in some other therapies like neurofeedback, biofeedback, and then make these lifestyle changes that help to regulate your nervous system. You already have dysregulated sleep.
Right.
So that's a sign that your nervous system is dysregulated. This is tamping down that one component. Why do you get agitated? I don't know. I'd have to spend more time with you.
Oh Lord, you do not have enough time for that.
Everyone always thinks they have the worst case ever. I'm like, no.
I'm sure there's worse, but I've been coping.
You're taking care of yourself.
I think the biggest step is the biggest step is realizing that you have a problem, right? And admitting it to yourself. And the second thing is admitting it to somebody else who can actually help. And even if they can't help, sometimes just being able to talk to somebody about it. And speaking of time, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you one more question before we go here. When it comes to, because you mentioned, bipolar, ADD, ADHD, different types of things like that. Whenever, and bipolar runs in my extended family, not my immediate family, but my son has been diagnosed informally with bipolar because his mom was diagnosed formally with it. Is something like bipolar, is that something that can be passed along person to person? It's like, it's not an environmental thing that you pick up like stress.
Yeah.
So if it can be passed along that way, can you deal with it in similar ways as stress, or do you have to deal with it in a chemical way, like with medications and things like that?
So first of all, I want to say genetics do not define you, right? So pharma has done a big sales call to make us think that everything is neurotransmitter related. And I'm going to tell you that it's often not neurotransmitter related. It's not genetically inherited issues, right? Stress can do the same thing that a genetic issue of bipolar can do. You can see the same behaviors. Trauma can do this. There's a lot of factors, environmental factors and whatnot. So it's peeling the layers of the onion. I talk about these 8 pillars of mental health, right? And what are they? They're sleep, the genetic mutation, the nutrition, their brain-based therapies like neurofeedback, biofeedback, and others. And these are, regardless of your condition, you can improve symptoms. What is unique about taking this lifestyle approach and doing some of these things is that you don't know the degree, right? But what we know from science is that you must regulate the nervous system. If you're not regulating the nervous system, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's medication. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to learn new ways of adapting. new ways of responding, healthy ways of responding. So it's really important. Now, are there certain biochemical conditions like bipolar, like schizophrenia, that put you at a much more likelihood that you're going to need some pharmacology? Yes. But does anxiety need pharmacology? Does depression? Typically not. I mean, I've worked with thousands of people without medication for over 30 years. And people reduce and reverse symptoms every day with me. So, and that's where my 40 pages of research is. I want people to know, like vitamin D, hormone regulator of the body. Every single person with a clinical issue, particularly mood disorders, especially bipolar, needs to have their vitamin D levels checked. They need to be directly supplemented, can have a dramatic effect on mental health. And so why isn't that a message for everybody?
Yeah.
Right? Why aren't we talking about how an anti-inflammatory diet can make dramatic differences in behavior? So, you know, there is so much, there is an unlimited and untapped ability of the body and the brain for change. And when we hack into it through these evidence-based natural approaches, let me tell you something, it is unbelievable what can happen to people. And I wish more people knew about it and did it.
Does the thyroid play a part in any of this?
Oh, I mean, thyroid physical problems are such a causal link for mental health problems. People with a thyroid problem, which could result on its own, could be from a head injury. I have a lot of males who have a history of head injury, playing sports, and their thyroid goes down, and then they develop things like anxiety or depression more commonly, weight gain. I mean, just so many symptoms. But you have to have an integrative specialist who looks at connecting the dots instead of just looking at a symptom. I mean, what's so different about me as being an integrative, mental health expert is that I am really looking at everything and trying to identify the root causes. Even when genetics are in play, there almost always is a mishmash of different issues converging at the same time. So why do we only approach it from that genetic component when there's other things, right? So, people, again, are just not aware. They're not getting this message, which is why I'm out there really talking to people. You can have dramatic changes with very small actions. And in a time when people feel overwhelmed, okay, I talk about 8 pillars. Well, you're somebody like me, you're going to do 8 pillars, but you can start with one. You can start with, I'm going to do some breath work every day, and I'm going to do it for 30 days. I'm going to journal about it, and I'm going to pick this one, 3 symptoms or something. And it's so important to make this investment because you're already spending all this time doing the wrong thing. It's about switching your effort and investing your time in things that are absolutely going to work.
Right. I
mean, these things make a difference. So, again, nobody's immune from mental health issues and stress. You've got to say, I am stressed out and this is what I'm going to do about it.
Make it a conscious decision.
Yeah.
Roseann, thank you. I mentioned at the beginning of the show here that, the attention span sometimes talking about this topic can be pretty short. This is one of the more exciting podcasts that I've had about any subject. So thank you for being so passionate about it enough to make it entertaining as well as informative, because this is one of the things that it's serious enough that people, even if you have to add an entertainment value, but you're just passionate enough that it just shines through in your voice. And I can tell that it's something that you really care about. So thank you so much for sharing that passion with us. Take a minute and let the listeners know how they can reach out to you, learn more from you. You mentioned that you've got some books coming out, so let's let them know how to get to them.
Beautiful, kind statement. And that's the other thing. We should all be kind to people. And thank you to Craig for sharing your story and making it, like just a dinner conversation. We can talk about these things without feeling ashamed. So you can find me everywhere as Dr. Roseann, and that's ROSEANN. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. And if anybody's interested in my book, you can go to drroseann.com, and it's DRROSEANN.com, or itsgonnabeokay.com. And that's Gonna, Gonna. And you can find it on Amazon, available for pre-sale. So, I'm really on a mission to change the way we view and treat mental health. And that's why I do all these things. I want people to have hope in a time when we feel so sad and frustrated.
Helping other people every day. That's what I say hope stands for. So
that's right.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. I've loved our chat together, and there's going to be some more conversations in the future. I appreciate it.
Oh, I look forward to them, Craig.
Thank you for joining us this week. Go to our website at thebizreveal.com to catch all of our past episodes. We're available on all podcast apps, or you can watch any of our episodes on the Biz Reveal YouTube channel. I'm Craig Sawyer, and this is the Biz Reveal. Till next time.